What's up, everyone? I was just at 19,000 feet elevation. I'm in this amazing looking chamber here on the 4th of July, celebrating, I think it's the 4th today. I'm in Canada. They don't do much for the 4th. They have this Canada Day thing. I wanted to take a few minutes to do some Q&A for you. You might be asking, I'm pretty sure you will, hey, what is that noise in the background? Is it going to go away? Yeah, it's going to go away in a minute. And where am I? I am inside something we call the Atmospheric Cell Trainer, which is a part of Upgrade Labs. I happen to have one downstairs. It's provided by a company called Seebeck. And what it does is it rapidly cycles the atmospheric pressure on your body. So it's basically taking all my cells and going, pumping them in and out. And I went up to the very highest setting on this. You have to actually train your ears to go this high. And now I feel high, but not like I've had cannabis high, but I feel like changes in nitric oxide in the body. So I've got much more blood flow in some areas than there normally is, the areas with high variability of blood flow. And I just kind of feel a little bit euphoric. It's amazing. Your body changes in response to these rapid changes. By the way, you can't do this. Even if you jumped off of a mountain, maybe if you were with a parachute, you could do this, or a big elevator, but you can't go up and down like this. There's a giant turbine that lets you do this. This is one of those things. This is a signal from beyond Mother Nature to the body that says, hey, respond. And man, I'm feeling great. So I'm going to shut off the compressor now because I just finished the session so you can hear me better. Look at that. It's like a little switch, like from a rocket. All right, here we go. Christian says, my exploratory system is ridiculous. Too dopaminergic. No, if I took nicotine before this, then it'd be too dopaminergic. That is a terrible word. Dopaminergic. Who made up that word? All right. Let's see. Biohacking for the rich and elite. Mind to Music LLC. Actually, you got to check this out. The whole mission of biohacking is not for the rich and elite. The mission of biohacking is to put all of us in charge of our own biology. Because I hate to tell you, you know how much you spend on insurance if you live in the U.S. right now? Yeah, you spend enough that you could easily go to our place in Santa Monica and you could do this or many other technologies that would work better than a lot of what your insurance company pays for. So why is it happening that way? You got to ask yourself that. Because all the tech, this is an expensive piece of tech. This is about a Tesla worth of technology. If you were to instead, though, just be able to access these the same way you do other things like public health facilities, like drinking fountains and all of that, we'd all live a lot longer. And the cool thing is you actually want to be nice to other people when your biology works. So that's how it works. The other thing is, look at cell phones, man. When I was, I don't know, like 14, a little while ago, like at least a year ago, you'd see these movie producers or Wall Street bankers, and they'd have these Mercedes 300Ds, these old convertibles, and the whole trunk was replaced with a cell phone amplifier, and they had a giant antenna and these huge, like 10-pound phones up to their head driving, and people were like, those jerks! And it was $25 a minute and $40,000 to get the cell phone. You could buy a cell phone for $1 and $1 a month in Africa right now. That's why you want the rich and elite in order to go out and spend stupid amounts of money. A friend, Brian, started a company called Kernel. He spent $56 million of his own money to learn how to quantify the brain in a way that's never been done in all of human history. I'm kind of happy he did that, right? No venture capitalist would have backed that, by the way. It took someone doing their own thing. So you want crazy people experimenting on themselves. And when I was working 2 jobs, basically, I spent 20% of my income on fixing my biology. And eventually I got to the point where, I was fortunate. I could spend a lot on it. And there's 3,000 articles on my website, 5 books and 700 podcasts, enough to do a 2-year college degree just listening and reading my stuff. That stuff's all free because the knowledge is free. The mechanisms are free. We're figuring out how all that stuff works. So don't worry about it right now. You can't do this thing. You know what? Do breathing exercises. The mechanisms of hypoxia and nitric oxide are written about in Headstrong and in Superhuman, my last 2 books. So just the fact that this gives you a strong signal, use the signal that's free. That's the whole point of all this. All of it is stuff that you don't hear when you go to the doctor's office. What do I think about cannabis from Stephanie? I actually don't like cannabis. It makes me feel like crap when I use it the vast majority of the time. Now, that's different from CBD. And the reason for this is there's 1,100 endocannabinoids. and inside the body. Different people have different receptors, different types of extraction, different types of everything. So what you end up with is different delivery systems do different things for different people. What we do know is that smoking it, unfortunately, it reduces blood flow in the brain. Dr. Daniel Amen, a dear friend, a guy who I would say saved my career and probably my life with a brain scan maybe 20-something years ago, showed me how to hardware problem that I could hack. I used to just think I was either an asshole or that I was just weak, that there was something wrong with me because I was pushing as hard as I could and I was slowing down. I'm in my mid to late 20s. I'm going to business school and I'm just feeling like a failure because no matter what I do, it's not working. And it turns out I had chemically induced brain damage. That's a bit of a problem. That was from toxic mold. So he showed me, fix the problem. And I did. And you can look at my brain scans today. They're on my blog. It's at ig-dave-asprey.com, though. There's a bunch of like food-based stuff and coffee-based stuff is on Bulletproof, but I moved a lot of the more kind of cutting edge where I'll talk about anything onto the Dave Asprey website. What you'll find is that there's just, for cannabis, there's no reason to smoke it. And eating it is probably okay. And for some people, THC changes their whole life. And like, it's okay. But you can't say it's good or bad. By the way, you know what else you can't say is good or bad? Liquid diets. You know why? Because unless you know what the liquid is, you don't know what it's going to do to you. Because the gasoline diet's a bad idea and a water fast is a good one. You know what else is a really bad idea? Ketogenic diets. What? Well, if your ketogenic diet is all based on margarine, it was a bad idea. So you have to go one level beyond the details in order for it to really work. And you just, I'm seeing a lot of dirty keto right now too. Same thing. They're saying, well, as long as I just don't eat any carbs, I'm a good person. I'm like, yes. And if you're a woman, in 6 weeks, your sleep will be destroyed, your hair will start falling out, and your cycle will be broken. And if you're a dude, you're not going to wake up with a kickstand in the morning because you didn't cycle it the way I wrote about in my 2014 book in the Bulletproof Diet. And the reason you have to cycle it and the reason you have to pay attention to the type of fat when you do these things is because keto is really easy. I did it in 1997 and I lost 50 pounds in 3 months. The other 50 pounds took 10 years to figure out. That was why I wrote the book, because it's the second half of the weight that's a problem. So ketones are awesome. Use them in cycles. All right. Celtic keto, is keto bad? No. If you go back on Google Trends, you look for when I launched the Bulletproof blog, there was a bump in the demand or the searches for keto, because I talked about keto as a scalpel, as a strategic tool. But to sort of say, let's just replace that thing that says some vegetables are inflammatory, some aren't. Some fats are inflammatory, some aren't. Some proteins are and some aren't. You want to do keto right, you cycle it, you eat the right fats, the right veggies, and the right proteins. Right? And all of a sudden, then keto becomes a tool, but it's not what you do all the time, because unending keto, even for me and for other people, it does the same thing that unending vegan does. It trashes your biology. So you can go protein free. It's called the protein fast. You do it 1 day a week. That was also in the Bulletproof Diet. It's in the infographic you can get for free. So the deal is, restricting protein, great idea sometimes. Going full on keto, great idea sometimes. Going full on carnivore, great idea sometimes. Doing any of those things all the time will probably make it so your body isn't resilient and adaptable. All right. Bergensen, I love this. PUFAs are inflammatory. You get it. You're a total loyal Bulletproof podcast listener, but it's hard to completely avoid PUFAs is a little okay. First off, PUFA is a word for polyunsaturated fatty acids, things that are found like omega-6 oils. And you know what? You don't have to completely avoid PUFAs. I got my ratio. You can measure your ratio of PUFAs, basically omega-6 to omega-3 in your blood. And the anti-aging people say you want a 4-to-1 ratio. It turns out I got mine down to 1.28 to 1 at one point. In other words, I had excessively avoided them. And that's probably bad for you too, because guess what? The omega-6 polyunsaturated fatty acids are essential. Sorry, did I just say fatty? Yeah, they are. They're conditionally essential. Problem is, you just don't need very many of them, and most of what you're eating are damaged. The typical American has a 40-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. Yikes. So what does that mean? It means that if you do your best to restrict them, you're still going to get them, and you'll get them okay. Just don't eat fried stuff. Don't eat canola oil, corn oil, vegetable oil. I'm not a huge fan of grapeseed oil, which is very high in that. Even though it doesn't smoke, it doesn't mean you should eat the stuff. So if you're eating some avocado, you're eating some nuts, eating some walnuts, you'll be fine on your PUFAs, and it's okay. Adi says you missed the first part. Why does hair loss happen during or because of keto? Usually, probably, there could be a variety of reasons, but generally it's a cortisol issue when women start losing hair like that. And it's because, sometimes a little bit of carb before you go to sleep is okay. And it could also be because of gut bacteria changes that happen, but it's likely cortisol. Ooh, Fabia, can you ask me to speak about topics from a parenting perspective, also when I'm interviewing people? Okay, so, asking people about what they do with their kids is a fantastic idea. I'll incorporate that into the podcast. Prince Bad says, you guess the Bulletproof Diet is that if you don't cook? No, I tell you what to do when you go to a restaurant. Like, oh, do you have any vegetables? Great. Could you, steam them for me? Or maybe saute them in butter? And then they're like, what? Yeah, I actually want a plate covered with those. And if you're having some carbs, see what they have that's a carb that would be safe. And then there are restaurants like mine in LA that will serve grass-fed meat or fish or just be vegan for a meal. There's nothing wrong with that. Just don't eat the vegan Frankenfood stuff. After all, Snickers bars are vegan. All right, the social diner. fMRI, EEG, MRI, what's the best brain scan? Really depends on what you're trying to do. You want to know about metabolic activity. fMRI or SPECT would be the way to go. Are you guys noticing how I'm skipping a couple words when I'm speaking? My brain is still hypoxic from this thing I'm doing in the chamber, and it's just coming back online. I'm noticing my speech patterns are slightly altered. When you want to know damage or something, you just do an MRI. But fMRI or SPECT are going to tell you metabolic activities. There have been some scandals around fMRI and analysis of data from them. It turns out there was a mistake they made in the math. That means most of the studies from a while ago aren't good. My favorite one, though, and what I do at 40 Years of Zen, which is a neuroscience company that I started, is I use EEG and I use a 24-channel clinical grade thing to see exactly what your brain's doing. You can actually spot someone's strengths and weaknesses and then train them in different ways to either double down on a strength or to smooth out a weakness. And then we built our own hardware and software with EEG. But those are feedback. The first one is analysis with EEG and then feedback. So if you're looking to change your brain, EEG is the way I recommend it. And if you want to learn more, 40yearsofzen.com. It's a 5-day intensive thing. Here's one from Christian. Is nicotine net positive to use daily? There's an increase in luteinizing hormone. Long term, is it beneficial? My assessment, and if you read Superhuman, my anti-aging book that came out a little while ago, New York Times for a couple weeks. Thank you guys if you read it or bought it. I genuinely appreciate that. I love all the reviews and the comments. I believe that if you are in your 40s, 1 milligram, and probably in your 30s too, 1 milligram a day, that's a little bit. And then in your 50s 2, and your 60s 3. It reverses Alzheimer's disease and has been known to do that since 1988. I interviewed the guy who did that. I call him Dr. Nicotine at Vanderbilt University, approved it. So that's, is it net positive? Probably. If you're going to take a lot of it, no. If you're going to take vaping, it's just a really bad idea. BB Laguna, is the Bulletproof Smart Mode supplement that I made the same as other smart pills I've taken? It's not the same. And that was one thing. Look, going back to 2003, when I was in business school, I wrote a business plan to say, hey, I'm going to make these, pills that do the same thing that Alpha Brain does. Tim Ferriss actually started a company doing that right when I wrote that business plan. It was kind of funny. It's like, man, I didn't know that till years later. And these are things that the Life Extension Foundation pioneered. Oh, let's raise acetylcholine in the brain because it's a neurotransmitter. It's very simple to do. And you see people spending a lot of money. You go to Whole Foods right now, go to the supplement aisle on the brain section, everything's the same. Let's put some vinpocetine, let's put some alpha GPC, even though CDP choline's better. And you put in the same stack, everyone does it, and then sometimes you get sweaty people with tattoos, and then you get them to sell it, and other times you get people with gray hair standing on surfboards and doing things that they really wouldn't do to sell it. That's pretty much that form of brain supplement. Do they work? Yeah. Is there a major difference between any of those brands? No, they're not. It's a commodity. I don't like to make commodities. I only want to do something you can't buy. Because if I could buy it, you know how much work it is to make a product? why would I copy someone when I could just buy their stuff and take my creative energy and my dollars and build something that never existed before? So if you're thinking about being an entrepreneur, like do that. Just, well, let me steal market share from someone who's innovative. Don't do that because then you're a douchebag. So anyway, I didn't want to be one of those. The smart mode stuff that I made uses plant-based compounds, things that have clinical data behind them that no one has just done the research on. So I put together, the clinical studies are there on each of the ingredients in it, and put together a stack of things like rosemary that have noticeable effects that you wouldn't know about. So people love smart mode. We just finally brought it back. We had manufacturing problems because the encapsulation I was using. So it's not the same. The other smart pills I take, like Aniracetam, the reason everyone says Aniracetam school, I've been pounding that drum for almost 20 years online. People thought I was nuts. It works. It's a fat-soluble form of another type of smart drug, and the whole racetam family there, it's been studied for 60 years. It's made by Sandoz Pharmaceuticals in Europe. It's a real thing, yet it's not in the physician's desk reference, and it's in a gray zone in the U.S. I don't sell Aniracetam. Because it's in the gray zone. It's not illegal to buy it or possess it or use it, but you're not supposed to sell it for human consumption, even though pharmaceutical companies make it for human consumption, and it's good for your... I don't know. I don't write the rules, man. I just follow them. It depends what country you live in. Okay, some more questions. Peter, you heard Man Impact Theory. Yes, you did. Impact Theory is a great show. I really like Tom. He's a great guy. We've known each other for years. Dave, can you invite Michael Greger on your podcast and shut him up for once? I don't even know who Michael Greger is. But my job on the podcast is to learn. You won't see me shutting people up. Occasionally I will debate, and it's to educate. But, man, I've had the best people on this show lately. Like the masters of the universe are coming on. I don't mean like the most popular people. We just had... Daniel Brown from Harvard. I just interviewed him. I don't think it's come out yet. This guy for 40 years has been the master, Harvard for 40 years. He's probably the best educated person on hypnosis right now and on trauma and attachment theory. Oh, and he's translated original Sanskrit books from the 1300s and speaks, 3 or 4 different dead languages. And he's a master. And Montauk Chia, I interviewed him several months ago, and we're just releasing the episode now, and it was a live interview before this thing. The world's most respected Qigong master. And guys like that, I don't want to shut down. I want to suck their knowledge out and share it with you guys. And, man, there's so much there. John Gray. So that's what I want to do. I'm sorry. I'm not going to likely shut people down, do takedown. You want takedown? Go to Joe Rogan. He loves to do that. He tried that one on me. It didn't work. Thanks, Joe. I love you, brother. By the way, since I'm being a douchebag, Elon Musk was on the Joe Rogan show twice, but I was on 3 times. So come on, Elon. I know you can do it. I've only met Elon once very briefly at SpaceX for like 5 seconds, and he has no idea who I am, by the way, just so I'm not name dropping there. I just respect the crazy stuff he's doing. Mama Graham. Can I eat carbs like plantains, yams, not the American ones when you're cycling carbs? Yeah, I actually recommend those in the Bulletproof Diet. If you guys haven't read the book, that's okay, but get the infographic. Just do a search, Dave Asprey, Bulletproof Diet Roadmap, and you'll find it. And it's basically the skeleton of the book. Plantains and yams are good. They do have a decent amount of oxalates, and I have been writing about oxalates. In fact, when I went on Joe Rogan the second time, I'm like, hey, you're telling other people to do kale smoothies. It's going to harm their kidneys and all. Now, this is, 5 years later or something, the news about that's getting out. So kale isn't good for you. Essential oxalates are bad for you. And I actually was damaged when I was a raw vegan by eating way too many oxalates. Kid nutrition book. That's a good idea. I could do that. Oh, Celtic Keto. Your daughter's less moody doing keto 4 days a week. Hell yeah. Keto reduces moodiness. I used to be a super high anxiety moody person like that when I was younger and heavier. If you put brain octane oil in your daughter's food or smoothies, it adds ketones even on days when she's eating carbs. So sometimes keto works because you're eliminating foods that piss you off and cause anxiety. A lot of times it works because of that. You eliminated allergens or basically toxins. And other times it's because you increase the energy in the neurons. So that's why this combination of, keto does this. Yeah, keto helps because it increases energy in the cells, but eliminating the bad stuff before you do the good stuff works even better. And that was what the innovation in the Bulletproof Diet was. Taylor says, big tech has health freedom under attack. It's our responsibility to expose what's going on. All right, Taylor, that's a big issue. I'm actually really worried about this. I was there when we built the modern internet. I taught classes on how to do it at the University of California in Silicon Valley at Santa Cruz, the company that held Google's first servers. I was a co-founder of part of that company. I have watched this happen. I wrote about the internet before the web browser existed. So this is where I cut my teeth. I am, old school internet entrepreneur. Actually, you call me Silicon Valley pre-internet, or at least pre-web entrepreneur and web entrepreneur. First guy to sell over the internet. So this is like EFF. I came up through this stuff. Yes, big health is trashing health freedom right now. It is disgusting what's happening. In fact, there's many things that I've wanted to post on Insta or on my other channels. I just don't post it because they actually algorithmically punish you. Even on SEO, I took about a 65% decline in traffic when Google decided they were going to punish people who talk about health stuff. Some of my friends took 90, 95%, things like that. It's not okay. And it's not because they did anything wrong. It's because they had a narrative counter to the current mistakes that are being made in big science. The current mistakes made me weigh 300 pounds. They made me fat, and they broke my brain and made me really sick. I had to go hack it myself. It shouldn't take hackers like me to fix it because we have like billions of dollars of research going into things. The research, they also know you go against the prevailing consensus in science. What happens? You lose your academic credentials. Science that's based on consensus isn't science. It's religion. Science that's based on data is what works. All I did was say, I'm going to look at the data on my own body because I'm tired of being fat and I'm tired of being tired. It shouldn't have taken that. I shouldn't have had to spend $1 million. I'm so freaking lucky that I made $1 million when I was 26. Yeah, I lost it when I was 28. It's not like I've been rich this whole time. I've been actually paycheck to paycheck way more than you guys would ever imagine. But this health freedom thing, what I did is I said, I'm going to send people stuff on email. It's the last platform that they really can't censor. There are two ways to censor email. By the way, I'll tell you what they are if you really want to know. One of them is DNS-based. The other one is you go to the email providers and you have them prevent mass mailings, because it turns out sending an email to 1 million people like I do on a regular basis, it's expensive, and the spam filters can be used for censorship. They're not being used today. So go to ig-dave-asprey.com/uncensored, and I send stuff on email that I don't post. Why? Because I actually care about you reading it. I'm less worried about, I got the SEO, I'm a big boy. What I care about is if I'm going to take the time to write something, I would love it if you actually got to see it. And the stuff that works is getting buried. The other thing I'm going to suggest you guys do, this will take all of 10 seconds. I did it maybe 3 months ago, and I'm kicking myself for not doing it a long time ago. I changed my default search engine to DuckDuckGo. It's a company called DuckDuckGo, just like you'd expect. And you know what? I started seeing the stuff I wanted to see from a search engine. I'd forgotten what it was like to go to a search engine and get results. I go to, the big common search engine, the one I mentioned earlier, who I'm not going to call out by name, but the dominant one on the planet. And they serve up all this personalized garbage. And for anything related to my health and biohacking, they serve up Reader's Digest level useless advice that comes from websites I would never visit to learn what's going on. They don't even put up PubMed results anymore. It's not useful for search. I'm sorry. They're trying to sell you and trying to make you stick on their site more. They broke it. So just go to DuckDuckGo. Just go to your browser, change default search engine, and all of a sudden you'll start seeing this amazing amount of info that used to be on the internet. But if it's not in the first 2 pages of your Google results, it doesn't really exist. So I am just loving this new world of amazing information. You can do that. Also, that daveasprey.com/uncensored. Go there. I'll send you an email. I'll tell you when I do a new podcast what it's about. I'll send you the condensed version of it, and I'll send you the stuff I'm not posting. Kind of cool. All right. Beyond Recovery MD, number one factor that made Bulletproof Brands successful. You guys really want to know this? Okay. Make shit that works. It wasn't my hair. It wasn't, Dave, you're such a marketing genius. And people say all that kind of stuff. No. I just fundamentally believe that if you make stuff that works, people are smart enough to tell that it works, and then they'll talk about it and they'll do it. And that's what I did. Bulletproof coffee, 200 million cups of bulletproof coffee. It created the functional coffee category. There's like 20 people trying to knock it off. Wow. That's
a change from something that works. I could have easily taken all the money there and I could have invested into saying, hey guys, my kale smoothie works really well. You should buy my kale smoothie. Kale smoothies don't work. They really don't. And people know it over time. Right? So you can create a trend or you can create something that has a meaningful difference in people's lives. Right? So as an entrepreneur, make something that's amazing and then do the work to make people know about it. I get reach outs from so many smart inventors, some of the coolest stuff in the world. I mean, I have this lab full of amazing technology and all this stuff over here. Yeah, I really do test it all out for Upgrade Labs. But most of the time it's from inventors that are either too scared to share their knowledge with the world or they're unable to do it. So they get stuck and there's these little pockets of amazing knowledge. Those are things I'm working to bring out into the world, and I just love doing that. All right, I'm going to answer a couple more questions. Then it's sauna time. I don't think you guys want to see me with my clothes off in the sauna. And if you do want to see my clothes off in the sauna, that's a different channel. All right. I'm going to pick one more really good question. Kill Taquitos, all the books. Oh, thank you. Oh, King's Bradbury. What are my thoughts about a 0.006% death rate pandemic? If you look back on my Instagram page, you'll find I did a video called Pandemic Math. I'm wearing some sort of strange hat in the video, as I recall. I was right. With H1N1, they said, oh my God, 5% death rate, we're all going to die. And then 2 years later, in press that no one ever saw, they said, well, we actually had the ability to see how many people actually had it. And it turns out that we were wrong by 65 times. So generally, when a pandemic starts, the people just go nuts about it. Not necessarily you and me, but the pandemic people go nuts about it. They have doom and gloom. They sell a whole bunch of drugs, usually in companies that they have affiliations with. And then when the real data comes out, you can't know how many people have something unless you test the entire population, which they never do. But they get a big enough sample 2 years later. And funny enough, 65 times reduction. Since the pandemic happened and all these doom and gloom things, well, it looks like in Santa Clara, they had a 40x reduction in the death rate when they just tested a bunch of people. In New York, it was closer to 80. So I'm going to stick with my about 65 times less than the death rate that's being published. If you guys are paying attention, yeah, they are overinflating death rates for COVID. Anyone who has COVID and dies from something else gets marked as COVID. So here's I don't know the actual death rate. Is COVID a real virus? Yes. Is it a big deal? Yes. Would I want to be metabolically unhealthy right now? No. It is worse than the flu. However, it is not this ginormous death rate. And some of the media that I see reporting this, it just looks irresponsible. So maintain your metabolic health, and it looks like most people are okay. I've done several episodes on it with different things, and I've also done something about IL-6. Right now, if you write any blog that talks about the coronavirus that gets much traffic at all, you will get a warning letter. And it is a major issue. So in order to even write the ones that I do, I make sure I pull links off of them. And it's actually very scary to write about the coronavirus right now because the regulatory people come after you very quickly. So I would just say metabolic health is what to do. And if you have highly functioning mitochondria, you have healthy blood vessels, you're going to be in good shape. Oh, healthy blood vessels, by the way. I'm testing out of several different new technologies. Actually, I'm always doing that. But to determine the health of your blood vessels, there's something called pulse wave analysis, where they basically say when your heart beats, how long does it take for the pulse, the pressure wave from the heartbeat to go through the body and return. And it's a very good marker for aging, at least cardiovascular aging of your health. Well, I've been getting numbers. I got 24 years old and 27 years old for most of my results, which means my cardiovascular system is apparently half the age of my calendar age. And I am in the 7% highest risk category for cardiovascular problems genetically, according to things from the DNA company. Is this crazy chamber that I'm in, is it working? Does the Bulletproof Diet that I've been on for, 10 years formally and more than that before that, do intermittent fasting, which, by the way, the first published schedule on a clock that I can find was published with the Bulletproof Diet. Intermittent fasting is a tool. It's not the only tool you need. If you have a garden, you need pitchforks, hose, and shovels, right? But it's one of those major tools. And it's other types. It all works. Do supplements work? You get these people say they don't work. Look, They work. The data is in. There are tens of thousands of studies that say they work. And so when someone selling you drugs says supplements don't work, that's like supplement people telling you drugs don't work. Newsflash, they both work depending on what you want. All right, my friends. Like I said, sauna time. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Go to daveasprey.com/uncensored. Sign up for the emails so I can start sending you the good stuff. And I'll answer some more questions on here later. In the meantime, happy 4th.